Hey guys, I'm back in the forest and today I want to make a video about why batoning is great and why lanyards suck. So stay tuned. Alrighty, so I'm here in my bug out camp and the first topic that I want to discuss with you is actually the batoning part. But first let me set up the camera on the tripod. Alright guys, so first, let's talk about batoning. Now, if you have watched my channel, like in almost every video that I'm making a fire, I'm also going to baton. And yeah, I just like batoning and I think it's a great method of making small kindling. But not everyone agrees with this. About like 5% of my viewers, they write comments like, batoning is not for knives, it's not meant for knives, it's not good for the knives and you could easily break your knife. It's better to take an axe or a hatchet. Now, I have to say that's only partly true, because it's true when you take, for example, a small blade like this. This here is the Barco Laplander. It's not full tang and it only has like 3 millimeters of thickness, so I would not recommend batoning with this knife either, because it might break and then you might injure yourself. So in part what they are saying is true. You should not every knife is designed for taking this abuse, but you can design a knife which can take this abuse, okay? And let's take a look at this one here. This is the Cold Steel SRK in AUS 8 steel. And this here is a blade which has a thickness of 5 millimeters at the back. And it's so thick it can easily take the force of a baton. So it's quite suitable actually, because the steel of this blade is AUS 8 steel, and AUS 8 is known for its toughness and it can easily deal with batoning. Now, why should we baton at all? Why just not take a hatchet or an axe, a splitting axe? Well, that's true. If I had an axe with me, I would take the axe and split the wood with it, and it is the most efficient way to split the wood with hand tools. But sometimes it can be that you don't have an axe or a hatchet with you because maybe you forgot to take the tool with you, or maybe you got into a survival situation and you didn't bring an axe with you. And when a knife is the only thing, the only cutting tool that you have on your body, then you have to use your knife to process firewood. Now, sometimes you can find kindling from trees, dead branches that are hanging off, and you don't have to baton the wood, especially in summer and in very dry regions, for example the desert. But sometimes, like for example today, you can see it's really wet, and then it can happen, for example if you live in a very wet place like Vancouver Island, that even those branches which should be usually dry are wet too. And if you can't find any dry tinder material or dry kindling, then you really have to baton into the core of dry, dead standing wood to get out some dry wood from the inside, because usually the outside of the wood is still a little bit moist, but most of the time at the inside it's quite dry. And that's why you have to get to the inside of the wood in very moist conditions. So, survival is an unknown situation. You can have an axe with you, maybe you are a woodcutter, maybe you have a forest axe with you, you get into the survival situation, and then of course you take the axe to baton through wood and to split up the wood. But sometimes it can happen that you don't have an axe with you, and yeah, and then you have to take what you have with you, and that's maybe, hopefully, a survival blade which is thick enough so that it can take the abuse. Now, before I continue, I want to show the proper technique of how to baton with a knife. Can you see me? Alright, so first I want to talk about the choice of baton. Here we have two batons. Ideally they should be hardwood, because otherwise the back of the blade will rip out quite a hole out of the baton. And this here is pine, which is not the hardest wood, but it's also not the softest. And the next thing that I want to show you is this baton here. It would be a good size baton, but it has so many branches, and if you use this you risk, you know, hitting your hand with the branches. So I don't recommend these batons. You should go for a baton which has no branches, and yeah, it should be not too big so you can still grab it with your hands. Okay, now when you baton with your blade, you first of all want to select the part that you want to baton, and then you put your blade onto the log, and you have to make sure that you use all of the blade. So I'm moving it like in, like almost all of the blade, so that I have still a lot of tip sticking out. And first of all, you want to hit right above the log. Okay, you don't want to hit here, because otherwise you make an unwanted lever, and then the knife is going to like push very hard against your hand. So first, it's very best if you hit the blade just right above the log itself, because then you don't have any leverage effect. And next, it's important that you don't let go of your handle. You have to grab the handle very firmly, and yeah, just press down a little bit. Okay, now first we are going to baton the blade into the log, and then we have to move our baton to the tip of the blade, and now the leverage effect will come into play, but now it's not as bad anymore because the blade is already a little bit jammed in the log. So now every time I hit on the tip, at the same time, which you can't see, is I'm going to press down on the handle as well. So, because if I hit here, then the knife will go up, 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 up like this, if I don't hold down against the pressure. And every time I hit on the tip, I'm also going to press down with my handle. So, and that's it. As you can see, this is quite a safe technique actually, because usually I'm sitting like this, like I put my legs away from the impact zone, and then I just baton down like this, and that's it. So when the knife is through, it just goes down to the log. Pretty safe technique, and it doesn't take a lot of effort. So as you can see, it's pretty easy to baton with a blade, with a knife. It's very safe, and it doesn't cost you a lot of energy. Also, you can fell some small trees, so in a survival situation when you have to stay overnight, you need a lot of firewood, and that is when you have to go and search for dead standing trees. At least here where I am, it's pretty moist on the ground every time of the year, so you have to go for dead standing trees. And if you find one, you can fell the tree with using the batoning technique. And you just go around and take chunks out of the tree, just like a beaver, and eventually the tree will fall. Yeah, so I think batoning is quite a effective and valid survival technique. And yeah, if you don't have another choice, you have to baton. You can't go to a tree and chew it down with your teeth. You always will take your knife. It's going to be like that. And yeah, if you don't have a hatchet, then you have to take your blade. And that's my approach to this topic, to batoning. Alright, so today I want to show you this. This is a small unboxing that I want to do now. This is a package that I have gotten from Black Scout Survival. And he's a good friend of mine. We are YouTube friends. He's another YouTuber who has a mostly urban survival channel. And the cool thing is that he also has a web shop. And he sent me some of his things. First of all, this awesome Black Scout Survival patch. And then he sent me some other cool things. Let's see what's in here. Okay, what is this here? Cool. This here is a tactical pen. And that's great because I have lost mine. And this one here comes with a glass breaker. And which is great. Cool thing. Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much. Mini compass. Cool. That's awesome. It also comes with the Black Scout Survival logo. And that's cool because actually I don't have such a small compass. And I really need this for my EDC, so thank you very much. And then I got... Cool. I think you know what this is, right? I believe this is a lockpick set. Let's open it up. Oh, and take a closer look. That's awesome. That's really cool. Great urban survival gadget. Thank you, Jack. That's really awesome. I lost some. I got it. Okay. So this is a very compact lockpick set. And I like lockpicking. It's a good hobby and makes a lot of fun. And it's good to use. It's a good skill to use in a survival situation as well. In an urban survival situation. Yeah. So thank you a lot. That's really awesome. Thanks. And yeah. If you want to visit his website, you will find a link in the description below. The next topic that I want to talk about is why lanyards suck. So I'm not a big fan of lanyards. Why am I not a fan of lanyards? Of open lanyards, I have to say. Well, why should I use one? I have a sheath for my blade here, and I can close the sheath, and usually I wear this on my belt, and this way I won't lose my blade when I'm transporting it. And even if I don't close the buckle here, this sheath here is so secure I won't lose the knife. And yeah, and that's awesome. So why should I install a lanyard? I have a lanyard on my saw, this here, and I've only put it on so that I can hang it into the carabiner, which is usually here at my rucksack, and then just so that it doesn't fall out because I don't have a secure sheath for it or anything. And then I usually clip it onto the small rucksack here, just so that I don't lose it. But when I'm working with it, I don't like it. And that has a couple of reasons. First of all, I would never sling the lanyard around my wrist. Because, like, let's say... Okay, why should I do this? I won't lose the tool, and even if I drop it, then I just pick it up again. Also, let's say you're standing in the forest and working like this with the lanyard around your wrist. Yeah, and let's say suddenly there is a bear approaching, and you run away because you're anxious, and yeah, it scares the hell out of you. then you can't let go of your tools quickly. Sometimes it's a must to be able to let go of your tools. So now you're running with the saw and maybe you hit yourself because you're running through shrubs. So that's not good. Also, for example, well, if you say yes, a bear approach is not really like common in my area, so I don't care about it. Well, a lot of people, they walk around with the tools without closing them because they get lazy. You know, if you cut a lot of wood and if you maybe build a shelter, you don't want to close your saw every time, so you're going to walk with your saw open just a couple of steps to get another log maybe, and maybe you slip maybe on a wet stone or on wet leaves or on a wet log, and then you fall down onto the ground, and then you have your tool attached to your hand, which is pretty sharp. And yeah, as I said, this is going to bounce back on you and maybe you fall onto the saw, and then yeah, you maybe get injured. Now the next topic is, I see a lot of people using lanyards, but they don't put their hand through, they just use it like this, which is okay too, you can do that. But you have to keep in mind that if you do this, for example, and let's say you walk a couple of meters through the shrub because you have seen this very awesome dead standing tree and you walk towards it, and maybe you're in a survival situation and maybe you're in a little bit of stress because the sun is going down, and then you walk through the shrubs and maybe one shrub gets stuck in your lanyard, and while you're walking, moving forward, it gets stuck and holds back your saw, and then it can happen that you slip over to the teeth of the saw or over to the blade of the knife with your fingers. And actually I know someone, a very experienced bushcrafter, which had this accident. And this even happens to the best, so you can't be careful enough. That's the second thing that you have to consider when you're using lanyards. And the other thing is that, let's say you're having your blade in your sheath on your belt, and let's say you have a lanyard back here, and let's say you have forgotten to close the buckle because, yeah, why should you do it every time, right? And then you walk by the shrub and maybe the blade gets pulled out of the sheath and you don't even notice it because there are so many shrubs, and you go through the shrubs like this, and then maybe your blade hangs on a branch like this and you don't even notice. So that's the downside when it comes to using lanyards. Now, I was talking about open lanyards, right? So what you can do is actually you can close your lanyards, which is awesome because then no branch can get entangled in your open hole. And if you close the lanyard, you can also like move backwards, and if you have the lanyard here, you can take your knife like this, and then you can prolong the handle with the lanyard. So closed lanyards are great, and then you can use the knife like this in a chopping motion, which has much more leverage. If you have to chop down some branches or something similar, then you can use a closed lanyard. But I'm not a fan of open lanyards. Closed lanyards are fine by me. So that's my recommendation, and I know that there are many different opinions. There are so many different opinions as there are people on this planet. So if you have a different opinion, just leave me a comment, and yeah, let's have a discussion about lanyards and batoning. I want to thank you for watching. Please share this video with your friends if you liked it. And yeah, don't forget to visit Black Scout Survival's webshop. You can find the link in the description below. Stay tuned till next time.